start, please put your questions in the chat and I'll go through them as I go through the presentation or at the end. I'm hoping to finish earlier so we can have some time to go through the questions. So today we're going to talk about starting your PM career with an Agile mindset and how important that is. And I hope I can go through this. And I can move to the next slide. Okay, I made it. So one of the things about myself, I've been working in project management. I started my career in project management with Scotiabank. I work for the project management office. And then I moved into a more product development environment and managing the product development team for the mobile team. This is when I realized that products are so important. And what we're doing in projects, it's all about products and it's all about delivering something of value for customers. So that was something that I had more of an aha moment or a wake up moment, thinking that, wow, if I had all this information when I started managing projects, I would have been more successful because I would have been focusing on the right thing. And these are some of the lessons learned and some of the tips and tricks that I wanted to offer with you and share with you today. I'm also teaching for University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies, and I am the founder of New GMP. Together with Peter Monkhouse, we founded this company to change the conversation and focus the conversation around products and product management and how important it is for the project management and the product management to complement each other. And for that, we also wrote the book, GMP, New Generation of Product Owners Who Care About Customers, because that's all it is. It's about making the customers happy, and we'll see how that applies here as well. So that's enough about me. So let's go through and understand, first of all, what is Agile. And I hear everywhere that Agile is a methodology, Agile is a model. So one of the things that we have to clarify is the Agile as a concept was not built to be a methodology or a model. It was not meant to be something in terms of a set of processes or a set of templates that everybody should apply and everybody should follow through. It was put together as a set of best practices and as a set of guidelines. So this is the most important thing. It's about how we work in teams. It's about the team spirit. It's about the ways of working. And we came up with some sort of a definition in terms of what we think it is. It's these ways of working that enable organization to survive the changes. And we see these changes happening a lot in organizations these days. So that's why even what's happening in the market right now, with the amount of changes that we have from this pandemic, we see that those organizations that are more agile and they have these agile ways of working already implemented, they are more prone to be successful and change their business models faster, change the teams, adapt to new products, go out there, reinvent themselves. The others that are more focused on predictability and control, they are challenged with the environment because they don't have that mechanism to deal with changes that fast. So basically, that's what we think Agile is. It's this set of practices and guidelines about the way we work to manage change. So in terms of how Agile started, it started as this set of practices, but it started in Agile in software development. So this is what happened at the beginning of Agile. Some software developers, they came together and they went skiing in Utah. And the focus was on making the software development projects better. So it started like this, like in more focused on IT. But then over the years, and it's been 20 years since then, it continued to be focused more on lean processes. It continued to focus on iterations and iterative approaches and incrementally deliver value. And that was something that we see not only in software development, where technology, of course, is changing so fast, but we see that in other industries. We see that happening in construction. We see that happening in agriculture. We are reading about case studies of using Agile in agriculture and building greenhouses and making sure that we have greenhouses being sold in grocery stores and so on. So we are seeing that happening in many industries, in the retail spaces. So not just software development and IT. So it evolved through the years, as it should be, into this ability for organizations to respond and adapt to changes. And we definitely see that with the pandemic, it will force organizations even more to evolve and use more of these practices as they continue to adapt to changes and the realities of the market these days. So this is a definition from the British Computer Society, and you can see what they think about Agile. And it's exactly what we talked about. It's these ways of working, and it's just telling us from a best practice perspective how to work with each other, where to work, when to choose what to do, different things based on what. And that's the priority for the business and the priority for the customer. And having that flexibility to basically implement some things, to take some things off the table, to add new things as we go through the project. So it's no longer that predictable environment. You need to have that flexibility to introduce new things as you go, because expectations change all the time. So this is again going back to this discussion, like why are we doing Agile? And I could ask the same question, why now? And if we think about the changes that are happening, now is the time. If your organization is still in that predictive environment, now is the time to think about, is there anything out there that we can do in a more flexible, more agile way? And you can see here, McKinsey came up with this 9 Golden Rules report in 2013. And if I look at it, it's still valid these days, because what's happening and what's been happening for the last years, organizations have been trying to reinvent themselves and do all this design reorganization and organization restructuring. And every couple of years, they have to do that, because we see that more and more they have the tendency to replace their management, because something is not working for their organization. So the first thing they know how to do is replace the leadership. Once they replace the leadership, the new leadership comes in, and they want to do all these changes to the organization. And they call it transformations, they call it re-engineering. But then at the end of the day, because you are looking at these transformations from a project perspective, so temporary endeavors that are meant to make that change and then basically close the organization again, and then 5 years later, open up again a transformation project, change as much as possible, close it again, and then not opening until the other 5 years from now, it's not actually working. So one of the things that they looked at is that those organizations that are more fluid in terms of change, that have change ingrained in their behavior and ingrained in their business processes and ingrained in their way of collecting feedback from customers, on managing projects, on managing products, they are more prone to success. Because you can see here that those small changes are basically what keeps the organization alive, what keeps the organization focused, and what keeps the organization competitive on the market. So those companies that have these constant changes, smaller changes are more prone to success. So one of the things that I was thinking as building this presentation for you in terms of the Agile mindset, um, there is a scientific study out there that says that we think in a certain way. Each of us is different. Each of us is coming with a set of principles and education. We come from our culture, so we have a cultural component around how we behave, and our brain works a certain way. So we have two sides of the brain, and we know that. And the question would be why? Why do we have two sides of the brain, and what's happening there in our brain as we think? Well, apparently, we think either with one side or the other. So what's happening is that one side of the brain has this capability of thinking in a very organized way. We are problem solvers. We think in order. We think in a logical format. So we like to do things first. Some things, that make sense for us. Then we do something next, and so on. So we are flowing these activities in a certain order. We like that prioritization to happen in our head. We like to do a lot of analysis. So that's the left side of the brain. With that left side of the brain, we like to do all these things in order and scheduling and estimating and so on. On the other side of the brain, this is when we are more creative. This is where our artistic side comes in. This is when we like to build relationships. This is when we like to talk to people. Some of us have more talent, learning a new language, for example. We hear it. We have talent around our hearing, in terms of how it sounds and so on. And also we have the passion in this right side of the brain. We have the passion of doing things, and we get that motivation from that side of the brain. So basically, we take whatever we think from each side of the brain depending on the situation. So as we went through this analysis, and other people like us went through this analysis, thinking like, how do you think from an agile perspective? Definitely we think with the right side of the brain, being agile, thinking more about the people, thinking more about how people's feelings are and how we resonate with those feelings, thinking about the passion of doing things, about the creativity and experimentation. Whereas on the other side of the brain, we are actually doing the agile, making sure that we are prioritizing our tasks in a certain way, that we are getting the process right. So one side being more on the people side, the other one being more on the task and the process, which is great to see, in terms of doing and being agile, how these two sides of our brain complement each other. And then first, what you need to do is cover the being agile components and make sure that you have that creativity coming out, and you embrace the experimentation, you embrace having those more fluid changes, and then allow you to actually do agile and implement the processes and tasks and so on. So think always like how in these situations of change, how you need to react. First, feel the change, and then actually implement something around it that you will make it work. Because we saw over the years that we need to adapt to the changes in a certain way. And that's why for some of us it's very hard to adapt changes, because we are very predictive. We like the order. We like things to go in a certain way. The moment the change comes to our life, we are completely disrupted. So that's why we have to embrace more our right side of the brain to actually let those changes sink in, let those changes guide us, see where they take us, and embrace them with passion. And that's exactly how the Agile mindset works. And what I've seen during my experience, so I've been doing Agile projects for about 13 years now. And one of the things that I see every time I go into an organization and I try to have a plan with them to adopt Agile or do an Agile transformation, the human component is the hardest to do, as you can imagine. processes, tasks, getting the plans together, getting them to be done in a certain way, and making sure that it's happening. That's the easy part. The human component and the change in terms of people and the change in the mindset and the change in the behaviors is always the hardest because of this part. It's hard for us to let go. It's hard for us to embrace more the right side of the brain where we have that creativity flowing and we can imagine things. That's the one thing as project managers you want to do. You want to imagine. Sometimes we imagine the impossible. We have a project in front of us and we are so focused on getting the task done that we don't let our imagination go and say, okay, so what are the other options out there? How can we do these things? How can we go out there to the customers and ask for feedback? How can we make sure that we are listening to customers? So this is very important to think about as you are managing these projects. Some of the benefits of Agile, what I've seen during the years, and this is based on the experience, is that there is that continuous innovation because of the experimentation that I talked about. Agile environments are very creative. We like to iterate a lot. We like to try. We like to make sure that even if we have a solution, that we try something else to see if it's working. And based on the feedback from customers, we continue to improve and continue to validate our thinking. There is the product adaptability. So all these changes and changes in customers' expectations that come to us allow us to adapt the product that we are building. So basically, if you go out there to your customers with some features and they give you feedback that those features are not working, you can right away cancel them and try to build other ones because it's definitely not working. So don't spend too much time in building a full product. Go out there and see how you can get feedback so you can adapt continuously. The improved time to market is one of the things that I've noticed. So in all companies that I've worked, faster time to market was definitely a benefit because you can actually go there faster. You can actually deliver something of value in the hands of the customers after 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Just something that we give the customer the opportunity to try. Then the people component. Everybody I talked to who work in an agile environment didn't want to go to work in a predictive environment. And you can see that, as you talk to people, why? Because there is a sense of collaboration, there is a sense of community. They work together, they like to stay together and then help each other in the process. And then you have reliable results because in Agile, everything is about measurements and it's looking at those measurements and seeing where you're going. So basically performing better and better all the time. So looking at the historical information, learn from that, and then continue to improve as you go. So I've seen projects that were done not only better, but also faster. And this is the scary part in organizations. When you see results like that, what do you do? How do you communicate that to your organization? Because sometimes there is fear that if you do things faster with less effort, then maybe, people will be taken away from you. Or maybe they say, oh, so how come so far you haven't done that? Or how come in the past you were doing that with a lot of money? What happened now? So it's very important to also make sure that you have a plan for communication inside. So as I said at the beginning, Agile was created around year 2000, so more exactly in 2001, when a bunch of developers just came together and they said, okay, we need to do projects better in the software development area. And that doesn't mean that Agile didn't exist before 2001. Of course, there were all this process reengineering and Agile spots. They weren't called Agile, but a lot of organizations like Ford, like Toyota, they were doing Agile for many, many years, thinking that they have to reinvent the way of working. They have to be more efficient in what they do. But Agile as a concept was built then through this manifesto that was very well put together, that had four values and 12 principles. I focused here only on those four values because it's very, very important to look at this and think about it. And their idea was that where should we focus? What would be some of the things that we should focus on? And although they didn't want to exclude what they were doing, they were saying we have to get better at what we're doing. So that's why they created these values. And you can see how they are written. Individuals and interactions over processes and tools, meaning that they prefer to have these interactions between humans actually talking to each other and collaborating instead of having great processes and tools that nobody's using and they are just laying out there and people don't want to contribute to them. Working software, and again, this is about the software, but having a working product over the comprehensive documentation. So instead of spending 6 months documenting requirements, trying to spend 2 weeks in documenting the minimum requirements, get started, and then in 6 months, you show something to the business that's actually working. So instead of showing a document, like a heavy requirements document, you have an opportunity to actually show them a working product. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So it is all about the customer. So when they came together and they thought about the entire process of managing projects, they thought about two things. Why are we doing this and for whom? So why are we doing this? Because we want to deliver a product. We want to deliver something of value to our customers. For whom are we doing it? For our customer. So for this, the customer collaboration becomes the center of everything that we're doing. So we prefer to have that customer collaboration all over some sort of a contract where the business comes or the customer comes, they give us some requirements, we take them, we sign off, or we build them, we give it to the customer signs off, and then they're basically waiting for the product to come to them. They wanted to involve the customer even more, to be that partnership, that collaboration. Come and tell me if you like what I'm putting together. Give me feedback, and then I will continue to improve. And then the last one would be about change. And as we said, Agile is all about managing change. So responding to that change instead of following a plan. And what we've seen in predictive project management was that although you put a plan together, the chances are most likely that your plan is going to change for sure, because everything around us is changing. So why put all that investment into having a plan that you know is going to change instead of actually putting plans together to respond to that change? So incorporating, allowing the change to happen in your project, because those changes will be reflective of what the market wants, what the customer wants. So these were their principles and their values. So these are their 4 values, and then they have 12 principles that resonate with these values. So I definitely encourage you to go to agilemanifesto.org, and you will have there all the information about the principles. So I picked one. You can see here, people and interactions over processes and tools. So you can see what's happening in an iceberg situation. We see at the surface all these processes and behaviors and tools because they are easy to identify. Like we can touch them, they are the tangibles. Whereas, the people and interactions that are more at the bottom of the ocean in this iceberg picture, those are, this is all about the culture that we have inside the team or inside the organization. It's about principles, it's about values, our behaviors, how we work with each other, how we support each other, how we trust each other. And that entire concept about our mindset, how we look at the changes that are happening to our organization, and how flexible we are to make these changes for our customers. So everything was there underneath. And that's why it was so important to expose them, to get them out there to say, well, we should focus on these things because they will actually turn things around for us. They will actually make us deliver more successful processes and have more successful tools. And the whole idea about the mindset is also to start small and go big. So before in a traditional waterfall environment, and I worked in a couple of them, we wanted to put everything in the requirements because we knew we weren't getting a chance to do that again. So we had a budget, the process in our organization said that you only get one chance. So basically building, 500 requirements with 500 things. These days, we prefer to start small because we know, for example, that 80% of our customers will actually use the pocket knife or the knife there. So that would be the main feature that they want to have. And then start adding those features in time. So we call the minimum viable product or the minimum viable set of features, the MVP first. So you go out there with that minimum set of features, you let the customer test it, you let the customer tell you what's the next feature that they would like to have, and based on that, you will continue to grow your features. And then it's all about eliminating the waste, because one of the things that we're seeing, given researching for our book, is that building a picture like on the left created a lot of waste. So 65% of those features are not being used by customers. So this is a lot of waste that we incur as organizations. The other thing from a mindset perspective that I wanted to leave you with is having a do and show behavior or approach, where you can actually show as much as you can to your customers. So you can see here, everything is transparent, from putting your ideas together in a particular backlog, to building a storyboard with the story that you want to create, to taking that story and putting it together in some sort of a wireframe where you can see things coming together, to building a prototype and showing your customers what you're trying to deliver to them, what you envision for them to use, and then getting that feedback. So from there on will be just the continuous improvement process that you want to have to get feedback, incorporate, and then you continue to grow those features as you come. So this do and show approach is very important, and it goes back to preferring to have a working prototype or a working product to show to your customer, rather than having a lot of documentation that at the end of the day you cannot provide to the customer to look at. So you won't give the customer a requirements document to review. You prefer to give them an actual product that they can touch. And in the end, I wanted to give you an idea of how that high-performing team or culture looks like. So you can see here, it's focused on continuous delivery of value. So that's the thing that we've been talking here, thinking about the customer and having that customer in mind first. So what do they want? You can see all this flow of ideas coming from customers to you and telling you what they want. You also have the strategic objectives at the organization level that will come to you from the strategic planning, and they have to align, they have to come together. This is what my customer wants, these are the strategic objectives, and you can see, you have that transparency to see that, yes, in fact, they are complementing each other. And you're putting together this product backlog that the team is going to work on. And the one thing that is happening there from a delivery perspective The product team will choose from the product backlog those items that need to be delivered based on the business value and based on their capacity or the complexity of the work that they need to do. So if there is business value there and there is room for doing what they have the skills, they have the capacity to do it, then they will do it. There will be items that definitely deliver no value to the organization or to the customer that go directly into a garbage bin. That's okay. So you have all those requirements there that sometimes are nice to have or that are very important at some point in time, but then they disappear. Think about these days with the pandemic, some of the things that we used to do before are not even relevant. So that's why, in organizations now, renovating departments or renovating buildings may not be a priority for them anymore. So they put them in the garbage bin for now. And then continue to deliver value to your customers, focusing on servicing them as much as you can and letting them see that you bring those items of value that they provided feedback on. So product team in such environments, they are continuous, they are longer term. So they are there to stay for the length of the product, for the entire life cycle of the product. They are focused on outcome, which is delivering value to the customer, and they are cross-functional, coming from all these functional areas with the knowledge that they have to help each other and working together. And the other important thing is that they feel accountable and empowered to make those decisions. So they will be the ones making decisions at the project level in terms of what they will be delivering for the customer based on the feedback from the customer. So deciding together with the customer what they are able to do. So that's a high performing culture that we see. Okay, so I can see that somebody's saying that you cannot hear me. Let me know if you can hear. So in the end, I think I have time for questions. I am right at the end. So I would like to leave you with one thought. And I thought this quote was very relevant for what's happening right now. And it's relevant for what's happening in organizations who are trying to implement new ways of working. In the new world, it is not the big fish that eats the small fish. It's the fast fish that eats the slow fish. So this is something that I want you to keep in mind. It's basically thinking like how you can adjust to change and be there on the market first. Sometimes it's just about the competition, being there at the right time, at the right place, making sure that you have the right product. There was an article about Quibi, which is a company from US that they were a platform for short videos that just filed for bankruptcy. And you can hear the founders and the CEO thinking about why Quibi failed. And one of the things they said was that they didn't have a market for it. The customers, with everything that's happening in the pandemic and everything, they basically didn't have either the nerves or the attitude anymore to absorb these type of things. So as the customers provided feedback that it wasn't enough, they didn't listen. So they continued to gather feedback, gather funding from investors. So they got to $2 billion. They created these very expensive solutions, but then nobody was willing to buy. So we learn from these things. We learn from failures. We learn from products that cannot resist and succeed in markets like that with continuous change. And the other thing, as I was listening to them, they said that they didn't know how to adjust to changes that were happening so fast in the market. So that's the other thing, having that capability in your organization to be fast, to be faster than your competition and whatever is happening there in your industry. So with that, I will open up for questions. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. and we can discuss them here. Anything that you've seen in the presentation that you liked, or you say, this would be something that I would like to see more or get more experience on. I'm here for any questions. One of the things that is happening definitely in project management, and we see right now happening, I just went from the meeting with Peter Monkhouse. We see project management, the Project Management Institute, and actually project management in general, trying to adjust to new ways of working, trying to provide more guidance in terms of tailoring approaches and finding the right way for your projects, so you can actually implement your own ways of working as long as it's working for your organization, and getting this more predictive approaches and then the adaptive approaches like Agile work together in hybrid environments where if something definitely is not working from a change management perspective with the predictive approaches, then you can actually implement Agile approaches. What is the difference between an Agile mindset and a product mindset? And that's a great question, Peter. Thank you so much. So having an Agile mindset, meaning that you want to think about the customer, you want to think about those changes that you can do for the customer, and that's exactly where that product agility and product mindset comes into play, because you want to think big picture. You want to have the ability to make these changes as they come to your organization at the product level, because the product life cycle is a longer life cycle. It gives you the opportunity to see beyond what's happening in iterations or in short periods of time. So basically combining that Agile mindset of creativity and experimentation with the product mindset, that means focusing on what you're delivering, the value that you're delivering for the customer, and doing it. So the Agile mindset is definitely helping you have a product mindset focused on value delivery. Thank you, Peter, for the question. Any other questions? I'm here for you. So anything that you want to ask me, go ahead and ask me anything. So one of the things that we put together was a course. It's called Starting Agile. And if you actually want to start Agile and implement in your organization, and your organization is asking, okay, so how do we try the new ways of working? How do we try Agile? You can definitely check it out at newgenp.com, and you find it there. You will find more details around it, or you can actually contact me. I have my contact information here for you, Joanna at newgenp.com. Do you have any strategies for working with someone who may not understand the Agile mindset and is only focused on the original proposal of the project and doesn't understand the changes that need to be made to better support the customers and increase longevity of the project? Yes. So it's definitely a long process, and it goes back to making the case for that customer first environment and who we're doing things for. So basically asking ourselves, the first question I do I ask when I go into organizations is, what's your product? So what are you selling or service? And who's your customer? So if organizations are not able to answer that, go through an entire journey of knowing what the product is and who the customer is, and explaining to the organization how important it is to know what you are delivering to customers. What are they actually getting from you? Because if we don't know that as organizations, we wouldn't be able to improve on anything. And then the customers, they don't buy what we are offering. So not, you will wonder why is it? Why can we just reach out to these customers? Why can we go there? So there are different strategies out there. You can put together customer journey maps. You can have value proposition canvases that are being done in order for the organization to understand the relationship between the customer and the product that you are selling. And through these techniques, you will be able to bridge that gap that you have in the organization and make people think that, well, there is life beyond project. There is life out there that we need to connect to the customer, and that's the life of our product. What is the biggest challenge you face as an Agile project manager? The resistance of the organization, because Agile is a new way of working, so it's change in itself. So the organizations will resist to change. So as you're trying to go into an organization and implement Agile, you will see that people will resist. They will say, no, we want to do the way we used to do before. I don't understand why we need to do Agile. So the suggestion would be to try to have an approach that makes less change to the organization, but also less impact to the organization. And that, in my opinion, is Kanban. So working with Kanban approaches is much better. It's a softer transition. I am unsure how to move project teams to an agile approach where on business side I support product knowledge, not software developer, and any pointers. This is exactly where agile should start. It should start on the business side. You are not a software development. So software development, we know how to do that from a technical perspective, from a project management technicality perspective. In the business, we really have to develop that agility to be able to put together those requirements or those features faster, to know how to prioritize them, to have that mentality that you have to listen to your customer, you have to have a technique to do that. So exactly what's happening right now around business and product agility, to make sure that the business teams are agile first. I look at this from a PMO direction perspective. Not necessarily. I mean, PMO will be very good at building artifacts and templates and so on. It needs to start on the business side, because you are actually the owner of the product. You know exactly what that product should look like and what the features of that product are. So this is where the business is so important in creating that culture of delivering value to customers, and making sure that you focus on those features that bring value to customer first. So those are the things that I would definitely advise you to look into. Okay, so I think we have time for one more question. If you put it there, I don't think I missed anything. How would estimate time that the resource would need for the project using Agile? There was an entire section or an entire discussion that we can have around Agile estimation. And it's founded on the fact that the team is a stable team. So you have the same number of people in the project doing and working on that product for a certain amount of time. So estimation is very easy, but the one thing about estimation is that it's a relative estimation. So it will change from iteration to iteration based on historical information. So if we say in the first iteration that it's going to take us 2 days to do it, and it took us 4 days, then in the next iteration we will estimate for 4 days. So and we will learn from there how it goes. So definitely a lot about estimation in Agile and a lot about measurement and learning from what you have. Okay, so I think that's the last question that I have. So I guess we're getting to the top of the hour. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your questions. And again, if you want to reach out to me, this is my email address, and you can ask me more questions if you want. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna.
Thank you.